Hello everyone, I'm playing some more Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered on PlayStation 4. I'm just going to talk over this gameplay. I don't do particularly well, but I've chosen this gameplay because it takes place in Kill House, and I'm playing as the SAS faction. And this level in particular reminds me so much of the original Rainbow Six, and it's fitting because it seems like, based on what I've heard from the E3 demo for the upcoming Modern Warfare, the setting and the tone is similar to, like I said, the old school Rainbow Six games that came out in the late 90s and early 2000s. Just, you play as, it seems like the same faction, the SAS. You go into an urban environment, taking on terrorists. There might or might not be civilians nearby. And just watching the IGN video in which the staff members expressed overall discomfort with how realistic the gunfire and how unsettling the animations and the situations in which they're presented with. One thing that was interesting, just in terms of gameplay, it seems like there really is going to be finally a lean mechanic in which your character can lean around corners. That's like long overdue in terms of features, because you could do that in the original Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon games. And also, another interesting thing I think they mentioned is that you can incrementally open the door. Something else that you could do in Rainbow Six and also in Splinter Cell, which you can slowly open doors. I wonder if you can switch hands to hold your gun and then maybe even prop your gun up against the corner of a wall of an edge. But in terms of setting for the campaign, from what I can tell, you're going to play as two characters. One character will be like an SAS character, similar to the previous Modern Warfare games. Captain Price will be your commanding officer in the field. And it seems like the other playable character will be a young woman who's a freedom fighter, presumably in the Middle East, maybe even Central Asia. And you play as her in a flashback, from what I can tell. Again, I haven't seen the actual demo because it was shown behind doors, but just watching other YouTuber videos, they described playing as like an 8 or 9-year-old girl in the midst of a chemical attack, and she has to fend off a Russian soldier. And I think we caught a glimpse of her in the teaser or the trailer, whatever you call it. She's got like a little gas mask, and she turns over her shoulder to look at the camera. So, again, IGN, I'm not a fan of the site, but it seems like a lot of people are just really taking this opportunity to jump on the opinions expressed by the staff members. And there's one guy in particular he basically said he'd love it if he could complete the game non-lethally, which, when you think about it, it's pretty ridiculous, but I can see why he would say that. I think at the time he said it, he was assuming the entire game would take place in settings like the demo, in which you're kind of like not necessarily terrorist killers, more like kind of a cross between soldiers and like SWAT officers. So maybe you might want to capture and apprehend terrorists, which kind of makes sense, because that's something that, you know, real authorities would want to do in that situation. But I'm presuming that there's going to be missions that take place in more open areas in which it's not really an urban environment. It's more like, kind of like missions we're used to playing, which you're playing in a remote area, you know, taking down a secret hideout or whatever. And this match is almost over. And I'm wondering, in terms of multiplayer, how Infinity Ward is going to maintain the same gritty and grounded theme throughout the game, like across all game modes. So I think they're doing a good thing by not implementing zombies, because that really would undermine the seriousness of the campaign that they're going for. But I've always thought it'd be a really interesting idea if the game had TDM matches, TDM games like this one, but instead of being actual combat, maybe they could be simulated games in which, like, you play as a character in a game who's playing a character in a game. So maybe like all the players are SAS soldiers, but one team pretends to be terrorists. So even though you're competing, you're quote-unquote killing, it's really just pretend within the universe. Like, I think that makes sense, because I was thinking like about how Black Ops didn't have nukes, even though it followed up on Modern Warfare 2. And thematically, I thought that was a really great choice, because the Cold War, it wasn't really about nuclear weapons per se. It was more about not using nuclear weapons. So I thought it would be really cool if, like, you're playing in one particular map, all the players are American soldiers, but one team plays American soldiers pretending to be Soviet soldiers. And you fight in like a quote-unquote fight in a mock-up of some Soviet village that's actually in the US, like within the game. And so when you're quote-unquote killing our other players, it's really just for pretend, and then at the end of the match there's a little cutscene, you see all the players getting up and just dusting themselves off, because they were just training, you know? Just building up to the anticipation that characterized the Cold War. Like, the Cold War was all about just gearing up, preparation, anticipation, but at the same time dreading for an actual conflict. Right? So that's what I mean when I say, like, coming up with modes, depictions of modes that still maintain the theme across all game modes. So maybe Modern Warfare could do something similar. So it's like you'd still play TDM matches within a closed off arena, but instead of like actual, like, abandoned cities like this one, it would just be like a mock-up, or it'd be like, yeah, like a mock-up, or like a city that's actually abandoned but that's owned by the authorities, right? That would still like make sense within the universe, right? And that's how you could justify quote-unquote respawning, because they're not really dying in the first place. And I'm going to assume that there's going to be missions similar to this map, which seems to take place in a Middle Eastern city, considering the missions in the campaign. What else are they going to say? But I think if they want to go for like multiplayer modes in which your characters are actually fighting for real, like you're actually killing and dying, I wonder if they really make that leap and make the game more tactical, like the original Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon games, in which there's like no regenerating health, no respawns, or maybe if you respawn, you're coming back as another character, another person. Like the user can respawn, but his or her character is gone, is dead, at least for that match. And I think it'd be a great opportunity, because it seems like Black Ops 4 has been really fairly well received. It's a battle royale style multiplayer in which the games take place over a really large area. So maybe, like, I mentioned it before, but I think it'd be really great if, like, you had 3 or 4 lobbies, and each lobby takes place in a smaller area, but each area is still part of a larger area. So maybe if your team conquers one area, you can move over and help out your your teammates who are in the other lobby, your faction that's in the other lobby. Kind of like similar to like rush mode in Battlefield, but instead of all the action taking place in one contained area, it'd be happening simultaneously. You know, so like maybe one team of 6 takes down this building against terrorists who are hiding out, or maybe like co-op multiplayer. I have all these ideas. I doubt Infinity Ward would have time to implement them, but I'm just really intrigued to see how they'll handle the campaign and how they'll maintain their obvious redirection across the game modes. So I'm sure they'll have Spec Ops. I'm a pretty big fan of the Special Ops. I'm sure they'll have that. And I wonder if you can complete the campaign in co-op. But so I'm winning the match. Modern Warfare. I'm trying to think. I'm just rambling. I don't have anything prepared. I'm just going through off the cuff. What else are they gonna say? Oh yeah, censorship. So I mean, I think I can't remember where I read it, but the developers have explicitly said they're not going to depict the physical effects of chemical attacks. They might show the aftermath, but they're not actually going to show people suffering from being chemically burned from sarin or whatever. I think that's a good choice. As long as it's justified within the story, I don't really have a problem with a game depicting that or not. Like if, for example, a character is like like a first responder, and he or she is running, tending to a victim of a chemical attack, then it makes sense to show, you know, the symptoms on the victim. Right, it's justified within the story because it's seen from the perspective of the main character. But if they're just going to show someone suffering from a chemical attack for no justified reason, no explainable reason within the story, within the universe, then it would just be gratuitous. It would just be showing it for the sake of it. And I'm gonna give Infinity Ward the benefit of the doubt. I don't think they would do that. But I do wonder how. I mean, based on what I've heard, like things like the sounds of gunshots, the damage that they do to physical surroundings like doors and walls. But I wonder if and how realistically they'll depict wounds. Like, will they show gaping bullet hole, gaping wounds, exit wounds and heads, limbs? Are they going to show people bleeding out? Are they going to like show different blood colors depending on whether an artery was hit or a vein was hit? Like, how far will they go? And is that something that people are prepared to see? Maybe not so much with this generation, but I can imagine it, you know, being a fairly serious question when the new generation of consoles comes out, probably within the next 2 or 3 years. But like I said, I'm pretty excited for Modern Warfare 2019. I was kind of looking forward to Ghost Recon Breakpoint, but it seems to be similar to Wildlands. And overall, I think the new Modern Warfare is a step in the right direction for war video games.